Serious, what tip or piece of advice do you constantly see that you strongly disagree with? Meteorologist. Do not get under a highway overpass to hide from a tornado. It is possibly the worst place you could be. The wind gets forced into a narrow channel because of the bridge. And it increases the wind speed. And likely ends up burying you in debris. Not to be seen for 3 weeks when they dig your body out. That stupid video from Andover, KS in 1991 has killed so many people in the last 30 years. Do not stay in a car. If the tornado is strong enough to throw heavy things at you, it's strong enough to throw the car. Only in extreme cases would I ever advise trying to escape. As in leaving your home to get in a car and get away. The path of a tornado is relatively narrow and quite erratic at times. By the time you're sure it's going to hit your house, you have literally seconds left to react. If you leave sooner, there's just as good of a chance that you would have been fine at home. Be careful not to overwhip your meringue. Almost every recipe that involves meringue will tell you this. It actually takes forever to overwhip meringue. I've only ever successfully done it because I literally tried so I would know what it looks like. This advice leads to chronic underwhipping. About 80% of the fails in our macarons are from underwhipped meringue. Cream can be easily overwhipped. Or as I like to call it, surprise butter. Never give up. Sometimes you have to realize your efforts were futile and move on. Something I learned in engineering school. Fail hard and fail fast. A slow burn of failure only results in you wasting your time and energy. All the BS quotes about, don't let others dull your sparkle. Other people don't understand what you're trying to achieve. If they don't benefit, you cut them off. Most of the time these quotes just enable narcissists to be selfish and not consider others. Just don't be an asshole, it's not hard. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Not true. Sometimes it makes you weaker too. My sister had brain cancer and she is definitely not stronger. Fuck that quote. Brain cancer can eat a buffet of dicks. It's nearly killed my mother twice. It did kill my mother. She was 47. It only took 9 months from the time she was diagnosed till the time she passed. By the end, we were just sick of seeing her in so much pain. It was a terrible, terrible existence. For everyone during those 9 months. It was something I would not wish on my worst enemy. Props to your mom for kicking its ass. When someone is upset or feeling down and people say, there are bigger problems in the world. Really isn't helpful at all. If a person is already feeling down, what good is thinking about more larger scale problems going to do for them? It just makes me feel bad for feeling bad. Then I feel bad for feeling bad that I feel bad. Which locks me in a feedback loop of misery. I think one of the unfortunate side effects of how interconnected the world is now is that our brains were never intended to handle all the knowledge and awareness of the suffering in the world. I'm not saying ignorance is bliss necessarily. But this sudden explosion of information can have a pretty powerful impact. Human suffering is relative. Yes, your first world problems aren't as important as the suffering in an impoverished country. But that doesn't make your problems any less important. I feel like this applies to our modern understanding of how trauma impacts the brain as well. You often hear people unintentionally trying to one-up others or discredit their pain. Someone struggling with childhood trauma of being yelled at too much is deserving of help just as much as someone who was witness or victim to a violent crime. You can be anything you want if you just believe and work hard enough. I'm not a dragon, so that's a frickin' lie. Blanket advice. Any advice that assumes it will fit everybody equally is advice to avoid in most cases. On the other hand, the best advice I have ever been given is to not listen to anybody for advice as it is tarnished by their own experiences. That people only treat you the way to let them treat you. Sometimes an a-hole is an a-hole. And there's nothing you can do about it. I can't remember the source for this, but the quote is, people in life are given a sword and a shield. Everybody is running around crossing swords forgetting they can't get hit if they just pause for a second and hold up their shield. Similarly, one I was told as a teenager by my grandfather. People's words can only hurt you if you value their opinions. And why would you ever value the opinion of someone that doesn't like you? They're clearly not to be trusted. Family is everything. Popping out a kid does not grant you knowledge on how to raise a child. Terrible people have kids and expect to be prioritized because, family. You can cut out toxic family members. You can choose your own family with friends who support you and give it to your straight. Life is too short to be chained to toxic people simply because you're related. Some people should never have kids. Period. Yet they are the people who have them. My sister, a horrible human being, is on her second kid. And I just know that both kids will turn out just like her. Lazy. Lying the Ives who manipulate everyone to get what they want. Yep. My brother has 3 kids and would have more if not for abortions. My 14 and 15-year-old nephews smoke weed and drink. I know the younger one is allowed to sleep at his girlfriend's house. Did I mention he is 14? And when my niece, 10 years old, cries, he gets mad and yells at her for crying instead of trying to see what's wrong and help. My brother and sister-in-law have 3 kids and it's absolutely horrid. My sil is a clinically diagnosed narcissist and my brother is clinically diagnosed with ASPD. You can about imagine. Both addicted to drugs or alcohol. Neither has a job so they fuck around and live off the government. Both are manipulative. They watch Gangland and true crime with their 10, 7, and 1-year-old kid constantly. She has gang tattoos on her face but isn't even in a gang, they live in a town of 200 people. My brother has been charged with indecent exposure to a minor, his daughter, but she continues to bring them around each other and doesn't kick him out, so I'm assuming she either 1, made a false police report or 2, cares more about my brother than her daughter's safety. It's all retarded. All drama. 2 people who I absolutely hate to see have kids. That you need to clean your plate. If you are full, stop eating. Otherwise, I think you forget the difference between being full and being stuffed. It slowly gets rid of your ability to tell when you're satisfied. Leading to overeating. Still struggling to learn when I should stop eating here, and not just clean my plate. Only thing I can really say my parents messed up on. Chew your food. Don't inhale. There's a moment when you sigh before taking another bite and that's usually the cue, maybe because the stomach organ expanded just enough to put unnoticeable pressure on the lungs, thereby requiring more frequent air intake. IDK. It's when you're supposedly satiated but you feel like you could probably keep going. If it's delicious and worth the risk, take one more bite but then save the rest. Just play the game, especially in an office setting. There's something to be said for fitting in and getting along. We all have to make concessions for society to work. However, people who perpetuate the idea that your workplace is toxic and political by design and that the only way to navigate it is to be a sociopath are part of the problem. And we all know that person who says they're above the drama but they never do anything to quell it, nor do they ever stand up for anything they believe in for fear of starting shit. Nobody likes conflict. If voicing a reasonable opinion to a reasonable person or defending yourself against underserved criticism is starting shit, or not playing the game, then congratulations. You work in a toxic environment. I dunno. Tacit support of horrible situations just irks me. I struggle with this question. Organizations stagnate and fail when too many people start buying into this mindset. Especially when they reach leadership positions. Keeping a system working requires attention to detail and troubleshooting. That means periodically calling out problems and correcting mistakes. You should be locking horns with your peers in debate from time to time if things are going well. In overly political organizations, voicing disagreement becomes higher risk and that kind of healthy debate grinds to a halt. Stupid and short-sighted decision-making takes over. Everything turns to shit, and correcting the problem becomes harder to worse it gets. Our high school chorus director had a large group but no tenors. So he constantly advised bass baritones, keep trying to sing higher and eventually you'll be able to sing tenor. Since then, I've known other choir directors who've coerced baritones into attempting high tenor parts, despite the strain on their vocal cords, just to cover the part in performance. The end result was a chorus with baritones that had chronic sore throats and who were discouraged trying to do something unnatural for them just to please the director. On the other hand, I remember that in my high school, kids didn't want to be tenors even though that was their actual vocal range. Cool kids were baritones or whatever BS. Time heals everything absolutely helps with perspective, but discounts all the hard work and intention that goes into healing. I'm gonna sound like an edgy weeb. But fuck it. One quote that has always stuck with me was a quote by Itachi Uchiha: "Time doesn't heal pain. It only teaches us to live with it." Which is absolutely true. Because all the stories of people getting raped or abused, do they just forget about it and live normal lives? No. They have to live with it. And no matter how much it hurts, they can't let out their true feelings in order to fit into society. It's like that grief box metaphor. If you imagine grief as a box with a button in it, along with a ball, and the box is perpetually in motion. At first the ball is large and constantly mashes the button, you are constantly feeling the grief and pain. As time goes on, the ball gets smaller, but every now and then, your memory will be jolted, and that ball hits the button again. The ball always gets smaller and you aren't constantly sad anymore. But there will always be times when the ball will hit the grief button again. Screw what everyone else thinks about you. You're perfect just the way you are. This one falls into gray area a bit. Because while yes, you shouldn't judge your self-worth on others' opinions of you, sometimes it is a good idea to listen to what they have to say. Sometimes people just suck terrible personality, lack of basic hygiene, disrespecting others, etc., and they would benefit from changing so they don't hurt themselves or other people. How people view you is important, and how you behave and appear in public will affect how society views you. Sure, you can walk out of your house without having a shower for a month, in old sweats, and sneering at the morning sun, but most people will have a negative reaction to you. That's just human nature. So yes, you should feel free to present yourself how you wish, but don't expect everyone to accept you. This reminds me of that quote that goes something like, "Beware of people who mask a refusal to be accountable for the consequences of their behavior as positive vibes only." You were given this life because you are strong enough to live it. This is a poster in the staff bathroom at a very disadvantaged school I sometimes work at. And yeah, it would be tough teaching at such a school day in and day out. Sometimes you would need a little encouragement. But it just feels so yucky to be saying that in a school full of kids who were given a life that they're not strong enough to live. They didn't choose to be born into any of this. They didn't choose to be raped by uncles, beaten by parents on hard drugs, abused physically, verbally, and in every other way, neglected beyond belief, often sleeping wherever they can, surrounded by stray dogs at ages as young as 5 and 6. These kids were given a life that they're not strong enough to live. Some of them commit suicide. A bunch of them don't. But even those that do stay alive aren't in a position to really live. Or at least not to live a life that's remotely healthy physically, emotionally, etc. Anyway, I really get angry every time I see that poster. People who post something like that in a place like that just seem to have such a trite, self-congratulatory attitude to life, at the expense of these kids. Why are they teaching there? Everything happens for a reason. Sometimes bad things happen, and all we can do is learn to live with it. Everything happens for a reason. Sometimes the reason is you're stupid and make bad decisions. By Marion G. Harmon. Ronin Games. That doesn't even go far enough in my opinion. It implies that everyone has very high control over what happens in their life. You can make mistake after mistake and still have a great life if you're lucky. While on the other hand, someone can be screwed up from the start and nothing changes despite their best efforts and they die at 17 or something. In other words, sometimes bad things just happen to people through no fault of their own. They're bullying you because they're jealous of yous. Kids bully each other because they are evil. Worse one, he treats you bad cause he likes you. Oh boy. I had a pediatrician tell my 7-year-old daughter that we have a new pediatrician. Live every day like it's your last. Begrudgingly doing something because you think you'll miss out is pretty toxic and desperate behavior. Not to mention selfish in certain situations as well as impulsive. I prefer, live every day like it's your first. Meaning free of prejudices or judgment. You're an open book who is curious about your surroundings and also has no preconceived notions about the new things you'll encounter. If today truly were my last day, I'd be ditching work to go free solo some dangerous rock climbs. If I lived every day like it was my last, well, soon it would be. Telling new couples to not go to bed angry. That is BS. No one is going to come to a logical and peaceful resolution in a disagreement while they are tired, disillusioned, and irritated. Even hostage negotiators know that sometimes you need to back away from the discussion and allow time for fresh air to pass. If you and your SO cannot agree on something that is important to you both and it is getting late, agree to table the discussion for tomorrow. Go to bed and allow your sleep to relax and refresh your mind. If you don't cuddle that night, it is okay. The next day, you both will be able to hash out the issue with cooler heads and logical reasoning. I think that the saying should be, don't go to bed angry, but do go to bed in the middle of a disagreement. You're right, sometimes in a disagreement both parties get tired, frustrated, and very set in their original beliefs. Taking a break from the discussion once you're tired and haven't solved anything is a very wise choice. But just because you disagree doesn't mean you have to be angry at the other person. An important thing in a healthy relationship is to be able to frame disagreements as us versus the problem. When you do this, you can disagree while still loving the person. I think the best way to handle late-night disagreements is to suggest going to bed. But to take a minute to reassure the other person that you love them more than the issue and that you know that you'll both be able to overcome the issue. Reassuring them that you're angry at the situation, not them, helps as well. When you sincerely do those things, you can go to bed feeling good while still disagreeing. That everyone needs to go to college. It's great for many, but isn't a good fit for some. And it is entirely possible to be successful without it. A lot of it has to do with the way I'm assuming your American high school system is set up. You lump everyone together regardless of motivation and academic ability instead of letting kids who know they want to pursue a trade do so and be their own man, woman once they graduate at 18. It's not really the HS. The issue is with our attitudes at home, particularly the belief that trade school is blue-collar and low-level work. Not going to college is seen as you fucked up in life and made a mistake. Despite the fact people spend $100K plus getting a social work degree to make maybe $30K a year. And there are many trade jobs that pay multiples above that. For prospective US-based law students, going to the best school you get in. I hear this time and again. This is really horrible advice for most people. Firstly, most people shouldn't be going to law school. Period. Secondly, rankings only matter if the difference puts you in or out of a top 14 ranked school. These top 14 schools benefit from better employment opportunities with elite firms known as Big Law and better opportunities with federal clerkships and academia. However, a lot of these jobs actually suck, like you will die internally suck. And going to these schools pretty much guarantees you'll have over $200,000 of law debt. So for most people that go to law school, which again, shouldn't be many people, I often say to go somewhere that minimizes your debt. That should be the biggest consideration for most people. Don't worry. Things will get better, haha. Tell that to the people who cried for help only for help not come work for them. Some things do get better. But not everything.